At just 14, Diane Lane graced the cover of Time magazine, an image that would become a symbol of Hollywood's rapidly shifting spotlight. By the time she turned 18, she had already achieved millionaire status, a stunning rise fueled by her angelic face and undeniable talent. Hollywood couldn't get enough of her, and she quickly became a teenage sensation. But as her fame soared, Diane's voice grew quieter, her presence more elusive. It wasn't until she was 59 that Diane finally opened up about her personal life, admitting to affairs with both Timothy Hutton and Christopher Atkins, co-stars from her youth. These were the very rumors that had surrounded her for decades, but had never been confirmed, until now. From the starry-eyed girl in A Little Romance to the emotionally charged scene in Unfaithful, where audiences were convinced real intimacy was involved, Diane's career has been a rollercoaster of complex roles and personal struggles. She weathered 2 failed marriages, a controversial arrest, and a lifetime of rumors, never fully addressing the personal turmoil beneath her public persona. But behind those soulful, often sorrowful eyes, who is Diane Lane, really? This is the story that has never been fully told, until now. Born on January 22, 1965, in New York City, Diane's upbringing was anything but conventional. Her mother, Colleen Lee Farrington, better known as Colleen Price, was a nightclub singer, model, and once a Playboy centerfold. Her father, Burton Eugene Lane, was an acting coach, a taxi driver, and a co-founder of a theater workshop with the legendary John Cassavetes. Their turbulent relationship ended when Diane was just 13 days old. Her mother relocated to Mexico, filed for divorce, and Diane was raised by her father, who later moved them to Georgia. Diane's childhood was filled with instability, moving from one residential hotel to another in New York City. She spent her days riding in the back of her father's taxi, her education erratic and unstructured, all while being immersed in the creative world of struggling artists. It was a bohemian lifestyle that forced her to grow up faster than most. By the age of 15, she made a bold move, declaring herself emancipated from her father and heading to Los Angeles with co-star Christopher Atkins, her friend from Child Bride of Short Creek. When she returned to New York, she moved in with a friend's family, worked to pay her rent, and completed her high school education through a correspondence program. But just when Diane thought she'd found some stability, her mother reappeared, abducting her and taking her back to Georgia. Diane and her father fought a legal battle, and 6 weeks later, she was allowed to return to New York. For the next 3 years, she refused to speak to her mother. It wasn't until later that they reconciled. During her time in Georgia, living with her Pentecostal grandmother, Diane found peace in the simplicity of country life. In the town of Bardo, she learned how to fix lawnmowers, live off salted meat, and embrace a life far removed from the madness of Hollywood. These quiet moments grounded her, providing a sense of calm in the whirlwind of her career. Diane's upbringing, marked by an unstable home, parental separation, and an early loss of innocence, shaped her into a fiercely independent woman, someone who carefully guarded her personal life and maintained a distinct separation between herself and the characters she portrayed. At just 13, Diane Lane began her film career with A Little Romance, 1979, starring opposite the legendary Laurence Olivier. Little did she know then that this was just the beginning of a journey that would both challenge and define her in ways she never expected. The film wasn't just a stepping stone for Diane Lane, it was an explosion, launching her into the stratosphere of Hollywood fame. Almost overnight, she wasn't just a cute kid on screen. She was a real actress, raw and unfiltered, with expressive eyes, nuanced emotions, and a depth of feeling that belied her teenage years. Less than a year later, at just 14, Diane became the talk of Hollywood, gracing the cover of Time magazine's August 13, 1979 issue under the headline, Hollywood's Whiz Kids. The magazine described her as a breath of fresh air in a cinematic world that was desperately lacking in naturalism and authenticity. Audiences didn't fall for Diane because she was perfect, they fell for her because she brought an honesty and purity to the screen that was rarely seen. Diane Lane didn't just recite lines, she lived in each scene. She made viewers, both adults and children alike, believe every emotion was real, every heartbeat palpable. By the time she was 14, she had already earned something most actors spend an entire career trying to achieve, the audience's trust. That rare, almost magical beginning would become the foundation for Diane's entire career, granting her something few in Hollywood get to experience, patience and respect. With each new role, from Touched by Love to Six Pack, Diane's star only continued to rise. Then, during a peak phase in her career, she starred in iconic films like Rumbled Fish, The Outsiders, Streets of Fire, and The Cotton Club. Many of these films were helmed by the legendary Francis Ford Coppola, who trusted her with 3 consecutive roles, a monumental vote of confidence for a young actress still barely in her teens. By the time Diane turned 18, she had already become a millionaire, with a packed filming schedule and a constant presence on the big screen. But with the spotlight came shadows. Fame, as Diane would soon learn, isn't as glamorous as it seems. Still a teenager, she found herself constantly linked to her co-stars, Matt Dillon, Michael Pere, Richard Gere, simply because of their on-screen chemistry. Each time, she had to publicly deny the rumors or stay silent to protect her privacy. Diane once shared, "Just because I play someone's lover in a film doesn't mean I love them in real life." But a lot of people don't understand that. Despite her meteoric rise, Diane struggled with being typecast. The roles that came her way were often variations of the ideal girlfriend, a safe, predictable part that didn't allow her to fully showcase the range of her acting talent. As the line between Diane the actress and the characters she portrayed began to blur, she found herself increasingly distanced from the media. The public began to write her story for her, and soon she realized that being a great actress wasn't enough. She had to learn to survive in a world that was eager to define her, to capture her essence in a headline or a rumor. But Diane wasn't ready to be confined by other people's perceptions. After years of playing the perfect on-screen girlfriend, she took control of her narrative. In 2002, she starred in Unfaithful, directed by Diane Lane. As Connie Sumner, a wife who cheats not out of lust but from a profound sense of loneliness and disconnection in an otherwise perfect life, Diane was handed a complex, multi-layered role. It was a far cry from the typecast role she had come to dread, and it demanded every ounce of her acting skill. One moment from the film, where Connie, sitting on a train after her first affair, doesn't speak a word, but instead trembles, her hands shaking, her eyes lost in confusion, became a cinematic milestone. No dialogue, no sex, just raw, unfiltered emotion. It's a scene still referenced today as a masterclass in acting through silence. What many people don't know is that the now iconic scene in Unfaithful wasn't even in the original script. In a revealing interview on The Jess Cagle Show, Diane Lane shared, "We had wrapped the shot and were bringing the train back to the station when Diane Lane said, 'Just shoot something.' I didn't ask any questions. I just closed my eyes and started. And with that, a single take became one of the most memorable moments in modern cinema. It was a raw, unspoken portrayal of emotion, and Diane's performance captured something timeless, something that wouldn't be repeated." In a humorous moment on Late Night with Conan O'Brien, Diane laughed, saying, "There's no sex scene on the train, but everyone thinks there is. That's the power of emotion and the lens." But the truth was clear. Her performance as Connie not only earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, but also the prestigious Actress of the Year award at the Hollywood Film Awards. Yet, perhaps the most significant achievement wasn't the awards. It was the way Unfaithful redefined her image in the public eye. Diane Lane was no longer just the teenage girlfriend. She was no longer defined by any male co-star. She had become a true actress, capable of carrying an entire film with nothing but her eyes and silence. And after Unfaithful, Diane didn't slow down. Less than a year later, she returned to the big screen with Under the Tuscan Sunday, 2003, a film that was worlds apart from her previous role in terms of tone, but one that took her career to new heights. In this film, Diane played Frances, a recently divorced woman who leaves her old life behind in the US to buy a rundown villa in Tuscany and rebuild her life from the ground up. Frances wasn't born strong. She was a woman tossed to the bottom, forced to rebuild herself piece by piece. Diane infused the character with a depth of real-life experience. In a candid moment on Late Night with Conan O'Brien, she shared that filming in Tuscany initially felt like a dream vacation, but after 5 weeks, it became overwhelming. "I had eaten all the wine, all the olive oil, tried all the pasta, and I missed my daughter so much. I just wanted to fly home. I cried. I didn't want to be in paradise anymore." The role earned Diane a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy. But more importantly, Frances, strong not because she was perfect, but because she emerged from pain, became a new symbol for middle-aged women in Hollywood. Diane didn't dramatize Frances's pain or portray her as fragile. Instead, she embodied the quiet, often awkward process of rebirth, capturing the truth of growth, slow, clumsy, but real. With Under the Tuscan Sun, Diane wasn't just an actress who had outgrown her teenage fame. She had become a grown woman who connected deeply with a generation of women searching for themselves after loss. The role showed that reinvention didn't need to be dramatic or fast. It could be gentle, authentic, and, above all, human. Following these performances, Diane Lane continued to refuse to repeat herself. She embraced roles that showcased quiet, imperfect women often overlooked by history, but whose inner worlds were teeming with silent rebellion. In A Walk on the Moon, 1999, Diane portrayed a wife drifting away from the marriage she had once chosen. When her husband is away on business, the void in her life deepens, and she quietly betrays him. not because the lover is irresistible, but because she no longer recognizes herself in the role of a dutiful wife. There are no dramatic confrontations in the film, just the quiet eyes of a woman who knows she's doing wrong but can't stop herself. That performance earned Diane a nomination for an Independent Spirit Award, but perhaps more importantly, it marked a new phase in her career. Acting with emotion rather than dialogue, Diane had mastered the art of portraying complex, often painful internal transformations without saying a word. In Secretariat, 2010, she once again showcased her ability to transform. As Penny Chenery, a middle-aged housewife who unexpectedly inherits her father's horse farm, Diane brought to life a woman finding strength in the face of unforeseen responsibility. It was yet another portrayal of a woman quietly but powerfully asserting herself in a world that often overlooks the depth of her character. In the male-dominated world of professional horse racing, where decisions were made by men and women were expected to stay in the background, Penny Chenery didn't just survive, she thrived. In Secretariat, Diane Lane played Penny, leading one of the greatest racehorses in American history to victory, shattering age-based stereotypes along the way. It wasn't just a role, it was a quiet declaration from Diane herself. I don't play the lover anymore, I play the leader. Then came Trumbo, 2015, where Diane stepped back from the spotlight to portray Cleo Fincher, the wife of screenwriter Dalton Trumbo during the Hollywood blacklist era. Cleo wasn't a character designed to pull at heartstrings. Rather, she was the kind of woman Hollywood rarely showed, silent, steadfast, and burdened by her husband's choices without complaint. Diane's portrayal of Cleo was suffocating in its resolve. No grand speeches, no overt dramatization. Just standing there, Diane conveyed everything through the weight of her character's quiet endurance. But it wasn't just about portraying silent strength. Diane also returned to romance with Knights in Rodanthe, 2008, reuniting with Richard Gere after more than 2 decades. This time, they weren't the passionate young lovers they once were. Instead, their characters were 2 broken souls, each seeking trust in the other after years of emotional wounds. The chemistry between Diane and Gere wasn't forced, it was raw, believable. Every glance, every long silence between them spoke volumes. It was a kind of chemistry that didn't need to be proven, it simply was. For years, Diane Lane maintained a calm and reserved image, never indulging in the drama of the red carpet or fueling public scandal. She lived for her craft and kept her private life largely under wraps. But in 2005, during an interview with Esquire magazine, Diane shocked the public by breaking her silence in a way few expected. I had affairs with both Timothy Hutton and Christopher Atkins, she confessed. No evasion, no blame, just a quiet admission, as if shedding a weight she had carried for years. That revelation didn't just shake the media, it forced the public to confront the rumors that had swirled around her since the 1980s. Names like Matt Dillon, Michael Pere, and Richard Gere suddenly gained new context. But what made Diane's confession resonate wasn't just the names, it was the contradiction it revealed. Here was a woman who, for years, had portrayed characters wounded by betrayal, yet had crossed that very line in real life. That paradox transformed Diane Lane from a symbol of raw emotion into a figure of deeper complexity, caught between right and wrong, role and reality, victim and transgressor. Some fans were disappointed, but others believed her honesty was proof that Diane wasn't just acting, she was living, even when the truth wasn't flattering. For years, Diane's personal life was a subject of public curiosity. But among the many relationships the media speculated about, it was her long-term connection with actor Christopher Lambert that stood out. They met in Paris in 1984 while Diane was promoting a film. Both at the height of their careers, he a European star, she a rising Hollywood icon, a cross-continental romance quickly blossomed. In 1988, they married, and their relationship wasn't marked by tabloid headlines or scandal. Instead, it was one of the rare peaceful chapters in Diane's often turbulent life. They had a daughter, Eleanor Jasmine Lambert, born in 1993, who Diane later described as the guiding light in every decision she made. But like many relationships in the entertainment industry, theirs couldn't withstand the pressures of long distance, hectic schedules, and cultural differences. They divorced in 1994 after 6 years of marriage. There was no scandal, no bitterness, just a quiet parting of ways. After their divorce, both moved on to new relationships, but Diane never spoke ill of Lambert. Instead, she emphasized that they had truly loved each other, but sometimes love alone isn't enough. What's most admirable is that despite their split, they managed to maintain a deep friendship, co-parenting their daughter with respect and mutual care. Not every relationship that ends results in bitterness or loss. Some, like Diane and Christopher's, end with acceptance and growth. After her divorce from Lambert, Diane Lane took nearly a decade before opening her heart again. Her next chapter would be defined by quiet resilience, her true self, finally freed from the noise of public scrutiny. When Diane Lane did choose to open her heart again, she picked someone just as complex and multifaceted, actor Josh Brolin. Known for his rugged looks and tumultuous private life, Brolin seemed like the perfect match. They got engaged in July 2003 and married on August 15, 2004. From the outside, they seemed like an ideal couple. Both had endured heartbreak, both were mature, and both breathed acting as if it were oxygen. But, just over 4 months after their wedding, the relationship hit a rough patch. On December 20, 2004, Diane called the police following an intense argument with Brolin at their home. Josh was arrested on a misdemeanor charge of domestic battery, triggering a media frenzy. However, Diane chose not to press charges, and their spokesperson later described the incident as a misunderstanding. No court proceedings followed, and no public blame was cast, but the image of the couple would never quite be the same. Diane made no statements to the press. She didn't accuse, didn't defend herself. She simply stayed silent. From that moment on, it seemed as though Diane retreated further inward, avoiding the public eye and focusing more on her role as a mother and the quiet anchor of her household. The marriage lasted nearly a decade, but in the end, it was Diane who chose to walk away. She and Brolin filed for divorce in February 2013, and it was finalized on November 27 of the same year. Neither Diane nor Josh spoke poorly of each other in public. There were no legal battles, no media campaigns, no public finger-pointing. Everything happened quietly, in the same way Diane had always faced pain, without noise, but with resolve. After the divorce, both Diane and Josh continued their lives and careers. Brolin found further success in acting and, after struggling with alcohol-related incidents, revealed that he had been sober since 2013. If Diane's first marriage ended with mutual respect and grace, her second bore the marks of quiet strain and emotional limits. Diane never portrayed herself as a victim, but her decision to step back, stay silent, and walk away was perhaps the clearest statement she could make about self-respect and quiet strength. On screen, Diane Lane often portrays women who endure, wrestle with emotion, and carry profound depth, like the tormented Connie in Unfaithful, the reborn Frances in Under the Tuscan Sun, or Martha Kent, the epitome of silent sacrifice. But when the cameras stop rolling, Diane doesn't bring those emotions home. Diane Lane in real life is a different story. On a talk show once, when asked about her cooking skills, she burst into laughter. "I'm only good at playing someone who can cook in movies. In real life, I've actually bought takeout and pretended I made it myself." One of those cute little lies. Diane is refreshingly open about her flaws, and that's exactly what makes her so relatable. Here's an Oscar-nominated actress, a Time magazine cover star, someone who embodies allure on screen, but off-screen, she's the woman who fumbles with a toaster and couldn't tell a chicken egg from a duck's. That's Diane Lane when she's not in character, unfiltered, authentic, and full of life. Beyond her acting career, she enjoys collecting antique furniture, walking, practicing yoga, riding horses, and most importantly, spending time with her daughter, Eleanor. There's no fanfare, no chasing trends. Just Diane living on her own terms, simple but never ordinary. Perhaps that's why audiences always sense something so genuine about Diane Lane. Whether on screen or off, she doesn't craft an image, she simply lives as herself. Sometimes a little odd, sometimes a bit eccentric, but never fake. Unlike many Hollywood stars who turn to the media to bare their souls, Diane chooses a different path. She doesn't strike back when misunderstood, doesn't sob publicly after heartbreak. She stays silent, as if what happens in her life only needs to be understood by her, and no one else. Some might say that kind of silence is weakness, but to Diane, it's strength. Silence not because there's nothing to say, but because there's no need to say it. After 2 failed marriages, a controversial arrest, and a career-long swirl of romantic rumors, she has fiercely protected a private space, one the press can't reach, where fame holds no power over her emotions. Some stars make the world remember them through noise. Diane Lane chose to leave her mark through silence. No scandals, no explosive box office campaigns, no saturated media presence. Just a woman who steps in front of the camera, speaks with her eyes, and turns pain into art. In 2005, VH1 ranked Diane Lane 79th among the 100 greatest kid stars, recognizing her remarkable rise. That same year, she was named 7th on the list of most attractive stars over 40. Not because she chased beauty, but because with age, Diane embodied resilience and experience. Audiences love her because she never plays the same role twice, from Connie in Unfaithful to Martha Kent in the DC universe. Each character reveals layers of complexity, making them relatable reflections of real life. Unlike many actresses, Diane Lane has evolved, thriving in Hollywood past 40 without chasing the spotlight or rebranding herself. Her quiet strength is her most powerful voice. She also supports global poverty relief through Habitat for Humanity, acting with calm, committed action rather than public announcements. Diane's legacy isn't measured by awards but by the trust audiences place in her performances. Whether she cries, stays silent, or walks away, we feel it. After decades in the industry, she now leads a quieter, more self-directed life, still acting for the love of it. Recently, she earned an Emmy nomination for her role in Feud, Capote vs. the Swans, 2024, proving that at nearly 60, she's redefining what it means to be a mature, fearless actress. Diane's life outside the spotlight is marked by simplicity. She practices yoga, rides horses, and enjoys gardening, flower arranging, and reading. Above all, she cherishes time with her daughter, Eleanor, a model and writer. Diane has no interest in clinging to youth. She embraces aging, saying, "Aging is a privilege. Every wrinkle is a memory." In a world focused on youth, Diane Lane shows us that beauty and strength only grow with experience. She doesn't need to declare herself a legend, her work speaks for itself. In Hollywood's glitzy, selective world, Diane proves that natural beauty and resilience never go out of style. So, what do you think? Is Diane Lane an underrated powerhouse, or a fading star from her teen years? Which role made the biggest impact on you, and what about her as a person touches your heart? Do you have the courage to age like she has? Let us know in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Tap the video on screen to keep exploring these incredible journeys.